What's good, everybody? I'm Keandre, this is HoopIntellect, and welcome back to the channel. And as you can see, we have a first look at the 2025 class in this one. Now, it is late August and nothing is really going on besides the NBL starting some things up. So this should only really be taken as a watch list or a bit of an introduction for those of you who might still be unfamiliar. Now, I am a lot more excited about this group entering the year than I was last year, but I don't really have too many conclusions other than there will be more potential stars towards the top of this draft. Now, there are too many freshmen on this board right now. That's just kind of how things naturally go at this time of year, but I'll try to adjust for that more as we get into the preseason. But yeah, also quick plug, I was at Damian Lillard's Formula Zero Elite Camp featuring, some of the best high school and college players in the country, and I did a written recap over the things that I saw, some of the standouts and everything in between. So if you are interested in reading that, that's over at HoopIntellect.com. The link is also in the description, so definitely go check that out, and we'll try to drop some other content that I wouldn't make into videos over there periodically throughout the year. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new to the channel, and let's start it off with the #1 player on the board. I expect Flagg will be at the top of this board for the entirety of the season. He's one of the most impressive young players I've seen, and though I think the bar can be set a little high for him at times when we start saying the next LeBron and whatnot, he is deserving of a lot of the hype that he gets. He's a 6'9" wing/forward who is inarguably one of the best defensive prospects of the last 20 years and an already elite secondary rim protector. Offensively, he can operate as a play finisher and cutter. He's improved a ton as a shooter and ball handler over the years, making more shots from the perimeter, and he also has great feel as a passer. Now, he still has plenty I'm curious to see in just how good a shooter he is and the level of responsibility he can handle as a creator. But his case for the #1 pick is a pretty simple one, and he should be one of the most productive players in college basketball this season. Now, as early as it is, I do think there's a bit of a gap between Flagg and the next several guys we'll talk about, but that group is super talented, and it starts with Dylan Harper, who is part of a special freshman class at Rutgers. He's a big lefty guard at about 6'6", capable of controlling a game as a playmaker, and he uses his frame and craft well as a scorer. He's also consistently improved as a shooter the last couple years, and I think he is solid defensively. Now, as much as I buy him as a talent, I've still seen things in his finishing, his handle, and some inconsistencies as a shooter that could dictate where he lands, but he's a very good prospect, and if you didn't know already, he is the son of Ron Harper, and obviously his brother is Ron Harper Jr. The other half of Rutgers' special freshman duo is Ace Bailey. He's a 6'9" scoring wing originally from Tennessee, but spent the last few years out in Georgia. He's got a special ability to create shots on the perimeter and is an explosive athlete at the rim, and he also has the tools to be solid defensively and make an impact there in a few ways. Now, he does get a bit carried away as a decision maker. The handle has been a question mark, and I am interested to see where he's at as a spot shooter, but even with some of those questions, that'll determine his success and where he's drafted. He has clear star upside, so it should be interesting to see how well he can round out his game, and in the process he should bring a lot of excitement to the rack.
Ace Bailey, stop and pop.
As a 17-year-old, Rocco Zikarsky stood out in the NBL both on film and in the advanced numbers. He posted a 13% block rate, which was the best in the league. He put up about 17 and 10 per 36 minutes and also had the second best PER, which was all a really good start even in more limited minutes. He's a 7'3" center who has tons of skills as a play finisher and is a presence as a rim protector. He moves pretty well for his size, especially within about 15 feet, and though his technique can use some refining, I think he matches a lot of what guys like Klingon, Kessler, Hartenstein, Zubac, and a couple others have brought to the table. So if he can prove it all in more minutes, I think he's got clear NBA value and could end up going pretty high in this draft.
Trying to work the rest.
I had a chance to watch incoming Baylor freshman VJ Edgecombe in person at Damian Lillard's Formula Zero Elite Camp a couple weeks ago. He was named co-MVP and showed a lot of what I expected from him. He's a 6'4", 6'5"-ish off guard who is a terrific athlete. He always brings the energy and makes plays defensively, and he also finds a way to be productive offensively as a cutter and at times attacking the rim. There are still some questions in the caliber of ball handler and shooter he is and can be, especially with how important it is at his size, but VJ certainly has the tools and is someone that deserves being in lottery consideration entering the year and will have a huge role at Baylor. Nolan Traore has the potential to be one of the better creators to come out of France in a while. He's about as dynamic as this class has in that aspect. He's a unique mover who has a quick first step and great footwork once he gets into the paint. He's always looking to make plays, he has good instincts as a passer, and while he is slim, he can be solid on defense as well. The pull-up shooting and outside shot in general is going to be essential for him. Definitely want to see him make strides there, and the same can be said for mixing things up as a finisher, but he'll look to build on a lot of what he's shown to this point has been positive playing for St. Quentin. Arkansas's Boogie Fland is another one of the most dynamic creators there are in this class, and despite being about 6'1", 6'2", he has a game that could easily make him a lottery pick. He's got an elite first step, he's a capable pull-up shooter, he plays well off the ball, and is underrated as a playmaker, and has really grown a lot in that aspect over the last couple years. Now again, he is small, and that always leaves little room for error, and I am curious to see how he finishes and handles contact at this level, but I've been really impressed by him, and he should be a focal point of this new look Arkansas program, whether he starts or comes off the bench. Hugo Gonzalez has been one of the more impressive international players in his age group. He's a 6'6" wing out of Spain who has spent his time in the Real Madrid system and has been a big time playmaker and someone that can create for himself, and also been solid defensively on the other end. Now the shot has held me back from being a little higher on him to this point, but if he can put it together this year, he could very well compete for one of those top picks. UNC's Drake Powell is one of the more intriguing prospects in the class to me. He's a 6'6" wing with the upside to impact the game on both ends of the floor, first with his defensive versatility and motor, and then with his ability to knock down shots and the upside he has to put it on the floor. He'll have to earn minutes on this team, and they have a lot of great veterans, but he should get at least enough time to fill a role. I'm pretty confident in that and show what I think is lottery upside in the process. Freshman guard Jaleel Bethea is the highest ranked recruit the Miami Hurricanes have had since Lonnie Walker in 2017, and he'll look to lead the way in what is kind of a clean slate for this team this year. He was named co-MVP alongside VJ at Formula Zero and continued to show himself as one of the most dynamic scorers in the class as a 6'4" off guard who can get buckets both off the dribble and off the catch and sky above the rim. Now defensively there are more questions, and at his size he's going to need to keep rounding out his game as a passer and decision maker, but he's another guy with clear top 10 upside if he continues trending in the direction he has. Texas freshman Trey Johnson is a 5-star recruit originally from the state but played his senior year at Link Academy, and he'll look to lead another group that looks much different than it has in the past several years. He's a 6'5" guard wired to score with the ability to pull up from 3 in the mid-range with ease. He's also a solid playmaker and has had moments running offense and setting up his teammates. Now, his defense has left a little more to be desired at times, and I'm curious to see how much he can avoid settling and really use his size and craft to get to the bucket consistently, but he has great tools and should be a fixture in first round and potential lottery convos. Now many of y'all are probably somewhat familiar with Dink Pate for his time with Ignite last season. He was supposed to play multiple years there as Scoot Henderson did in the past, but with the program being discontinued, he decided to stay in the G League but head to Mexico City, which could be a gateway to the G actually being a more legitimate path for young players of his caliber in kind of an NBL Next Stars model. But getting into Pate's game, he's a 6'8" guard who has shown a lot as a distributor and self-creator despite being markedly inefficient as a 17-year-old. He has tons of upside if he's able to put it together physically and as a shooter, but those things will be the main focus as he tries to come in and make an impact. Illinois freshman Kaspars Jakučionis is a 6'5" combo guard out of Lithuania and recently put on an absolute show in the U18 Eurobasket, including a 37-point game against France. And as it's been in other settings, I was frequently impressed by his ability to score from multiple parts on the floor. He can pass it and has a level of confidence off the bounce that's hard to come by. And on the other end, he provides ball pressure at the point of attack. Illinois is another team that has a ton of talent and a few older guys that are there already, but I think KJ has the potential to maybe lead them and be a potential lottery pick. The back-to-back champion UConn Huskies bring in another winner in Montvert's Liam McNeely. He's a 6'7" wing who can shoot it, he makes smart plays, and excels off the ball. He doesn't have a ton to his game off the bounce and is more of a smart team defender than someone I think is locking guys down, but he's just a good basketball player overall. I think he makes an instant impact this year and should eventually do the same in the NBA as a high-level role player and one that teams always covet.
You cannot, the reality behind it.
Colin Murray Boyles is my top returner in college basketball and someone that has a lot of buzz heading into the year, largely because of his productivity as a freshman. He posted a BPM of 9.5, and since 2008, only 43 freshmen have ever had one greater than 9. And of those 43, only 3 of them, including CMB, didn't get drafted, and those who did get drafted, 37 were lottery picks, most of which were one and done. So that's production in history that's pretty significantly in his favor. As for his game, he's an interior scorer and play finisher at 6'7". He's a really talented passer and versatile defender with good feel in all facets of the game. My issue is, unless he shoots it or I trust him as like a hub playmaker, it could be a bit of a clunkier fit for him in the league, but he's here for a reason. I'm more looking to see where he's headed before I'm completely sold on him as like a top 7 guy. Duke's Kon Knueppel was highly ranked out of high school, but he wasn't necessarily the most box office or most hype behind Flagg from this recruiting class, but he's already generated a lot of buzz since stepping on campus. He's a 6'6" guard or wing who has great feel and can knock down shots from all spots on the floor. He led the EYBL in scoring last summer, and while he isn't the most athletic or flashiest, he makes winning plays and understands where he's effective. Now, I do have some concerns in his defense, and we'll talk about so many guys on this team that it's hard to fully project who separates himself, but I like his game a lot. I think he impacts winning, and he could very quickly be the Blue Devils' second best prospect. Georgia's Asa Newell was another guy at the Dame camp, and he was one of the most consistent players there, doing a lot of what we've seen from him to this point. He's a 6'10" forward/big who plays with a lot of energy, is a versatile defender, and shines as a play finisher and transition scorer. I'm still not fully bought in on the shot, but it's looked pretty good, and he was super confident during the camp, so I think if he continues in that direction, he'll ease some of the 4 or 5 tweener concerns and be on his way to an excellent season and be picked fairly high as a potential winning piece. Another member of this talented Duke squad is Kaman Malawach, a 7'2" center born in South Sudan. He's made plenty of noise over the last several years as a product of the NBA Academy and other events like the BAL, and he also recently played in the Olympics. He's got tantalizing upside as a rim protector who can also finish plays and has the potential to really shoot it. He still has some catching up to do in some other areas, particularly in his positioning on defense and in the pick and roll, but he's certainly capable of being one of the most impactful long-term prospects in this class and someone that should make things tough on teams on the interior alongside Flagg, Malik Brown, and others. Syracuse's Donnie Freeman has really made strides over the last few years of his high school career and looks poised to continue on that trajectory this season. He was also a member of that Bahamas national team with VJ Edgecombe this summer, and a 6'9" forward with his combination of athletic tools, defensive versatility, and the upside to stretch the floor and finish inside is intriguing. He is still a little rough around the edges offensively in some ways, but I've grown to like his game the more I've watched him, so he's someone I wouldn't be surprised to see climb boards quickly. Yegor Dimon is one of a couple interesting BYU players this year. He's a 6'8" guard or wing out of Russia who is a fluid athlete, can get to the bucket and make a play in the pick and roll. I'm curious to see how he handles physicality, where his shot is at, and where he can show himself to be great, but he's got a great skill set, and wings who can do a number of things always have a lot of intrigue entering the year. Alex Karaban is someone y'all are already very familiar with. He's coming off of 2 straight national titles as a key member of both of those teams. He's got good size, he shoots it, plays well off the ball, he's unselfish and makes the right plays defensively, and I'd be surprised if he wasn't a top 40 pick in his draft at this point. I'm curious to see how much he improves as an athlete and if he adds anything offensively, but I don't have too much else to learn about him. He's one of the guys I'm almost positive will be here all year long. Hunter Salas will look to build on what was a breakout year for him at Wake Forest. He's an adept shooter who can score in multiple ways, and despite not being the most physically gifted, he did solid work on the defensive end. I want to see more growth as a playmaker and decision maker from him given his size. I also want to see him get to the line more often and fully prove the shot real, but I like his game and I'd be pretty surprised if he doesn't hear his name called in June. Jalen Lowe is atop the list of sophomores looking to break out in year 2. His freshman season was shared in the backcourt with Bub Carrington, who obviously stole a lot of the spotlight, but Lowe was quietly also really good for a freshman guard, especially around the halfway point of the year and on. He's a very talented passer, he's crafty, he gets to his spots, he shot it well down the stretch. The margins are slimmer for the smaller and slimmer guards always, but he's got the skill set and should have the keys this season. To me, Caleb Foster is the most gifted creator on this Duke team, and even with there being so much talent here, I think he stands out as a sophomore. He had a solid freshman season, and his combination of downhill ability, craftiness, and playmaking upside make him someone I have my eyes on going into the season. Defensively, he is going to have to continue making progress, but the way he was able to fit in an off-ball role already, hitting nearly 50% of his threes off the catch, and just finding a way to be effective, I think he's primed to fully make his presence felt this year. Arizona's KJ Lewis was one of the better performing freshmen last season. I didn't fully convince he was a one and done, but his energy, his defense, and passing acumen as a physical off guard was pretty undeniable. He's got all the tools of a career role player, and this will be the season for him to further assert himself by increasing his three-point volume, adding consistency on offense, and really pushing for a first-round selection. Isaiah Evans is another piece of this great Duke recruiting class as the back-to-back Mr. Basketball in North Carolina. He's a 6'6", 6'7" wing who can fill it up as a scorer, is a solid passer, and always competes defensively, and you can see the kind of fire he plays with in nearly every setting. He is going to have to fill in his frame, so that could be a reason he ends up a multi-year guy, but he certainly has a skill set to belong in these conversations. Illinois' Will Riley has been one of my favorite early watches in this class. He's got a lot of tools as a scorer and shooter. I like his pace, he has real craft to what he does, and he's shown upside as a pick and roll operator. I think it'll mostly come down to readiness and opportunity for a guy who classed up to head to college, but whenever it happens for him, he's got a good chance of it being significant. Arkansas's Carter Knox is a 6'5" wing or off guard with great upside as a shot maker. He showed it in the EYBL, he showed it with Tampa Catholic, and last year with OTE, where he was one of the league's best players. He's physical, he's creative, he can score it from all over the floor, and he's also has some intriguing playmaking moments along the way. I think for him it's going to be about how good he is as a decision maker. And where he matches up best defensively, but it won't take you long to see his talent level. And for those who don't know, he is in fact the younger brother of former lottery pick and Kentucky Wildcat Kevin Knox. Mateus Krivas is one of the more intriguing returners this year to me. He's a 7'2" big man out of Lithuania going into his sophomore year with the Arizona Wildcats, and he should have a substantial amount of opportunity and responsibility with the departure of Umar Ballo. He's got a great skill set with moments as an interior scorer, smooth mover, and interior defender. I definitely want to see it for more than just spurts before I'm fully bought in on him, but he belongs here and has legitimate NBA upside. Dalen Swain out of Xavier is someone I think deserves to be well included in these early season watch lists. He's a 6'7" wing with tremendous defensive upside and stood out on that end from the first game last year. He's a really good passer, he's a great mover off the ball, and he is still pretty young for a sophomore. He's going to have to be more effective from the floor, develop physically, and the shot will be key, but I think he has the makings of an NBA contributor and someone that could be in for a huge breakout in the Big East with way more opportunity in year 2. Ian Jackson is another Tar Heel freshman I think has first round upside. He's a 6'4" guard out of New York who is aggressive, can get to the bucket, he handles it well, and also provides ball pressure on defense. He will need to continue to grow as a decision maker and shooter. Those two things are going to be vital for him, and the opportunity won't be abundant playing with two guards like Elliot Cadeau and RJ Davis, but he is certainly one to keep your eye on. We talked about Oregon's KJ Evans a few times last season, and I like the type of impact he was having early on as a big forward who had great stretches of defensive versatility, the ability to both finish plays inside and space the floor, and also make a play on occasion. He's got the makings of a compelling NBA four-man. It's just about being more consistent and proving that he can be at his best when he isn't a college center. So that's what I'll be looking forward to seeing. Things could go in a couple different directions for France and Ratio Farm Ohm's Noah Asingé this season, but in terms of raw talent and upside, He's up there with most beyond the obvious guys at the top. He's one of the youngest players in the draft as a toolsy 6'9" forward with great fluidity, defensive versatility, and the upside to score it as a play finisher. And he also has some real flashes of playmaking potential, whether it is in transition or making plays on the short roll. Now his physicality, his outside shot, and his handle will color most of the conversation around him these next several months, but if it all goes well, he'll definitely be in first round discussions, and I was impressed by him in the U18s. I like Carter Bryant's skill set as a 6'8" wing with great upside as a shot maker, shooter, and someone who has the tools to be a plus defender. He's another freshman that was kind of on the borderline for whether or not to include him based on opportunity, but his skill set makes too much sense, and I think he'll cut through in some capacity this year and at least be a long-term guy. If you watch the channel for the 2024 draft, you know who Jameer Watkins is. He's already an NBA wing physically, he's a tough defender, and a solid playmaker in a number of ways. This year will just be about shooting the three more effectively and overall continuing to improve as an offensive player, like how he did as a finisher last year. He'll be 24 on draft night, so that kind of caps his value in some ways, even as much as I like him. But if he makes good on the feedback he got from scouts this year, he should have a good opportunity waiting for him as someone who can come in and fill a role. There's something about Tyrese Proctor's game that makes him hard to sort of quit as a prospect. He's got all the tools from size to self-creation ability and craft and the ability to make tons of passes and defend. It just hasn't been as consistent or effective as we wanted it to be, and he'll have moments where he's completely missing from games, but all the pieces are there. He is still only 20, but given the sample we've seen, I'm not quite as intrigued by his potential, but if he can make the necessary improvements, he'll be someone tons of teams are interested in as a versatile combo guard. Conventional draft wisdom in history wouldn't necessarily be super high on Mark Sears, given he's about 5'11" and will be 23 by the time draft night rolls around, but he's going to be a National Player of the Year contender and checks too many boxes offensively as a big-time shooter, a crafty finisher, and heady playmaker. The defensive concerns at his size will weigh heavily into his NBA future, but he competes there and he projects as an obvious draftable talent, so I think he has to be included here. Cam Jones was easily draftable to me a year ago and will look to be the focal point of this Marquette team that loses Tyler Kolek and Oso Ighodaro to the NBA. I'm curious to see how he handles things without those guys in the fold with a little bit more playmaking and decision-making responsibility, but his ability to get buckets in nearly every way, make secondary plays, and hold his own defensively is something I think teams will be intrigued by anywhere from like the 20s into the second round. Ben Seraph turned a lot of heads during his performance in the U18 Eurobasket, winning MVP. He's a lefty guard with good size, great craft, and the ability to get to the paint whenever he wants and make a play for a teammate. I want to see a lot more from him this season with Ohm before I come to a complete conclusion on his game. I think that level is going to tell a lot about him, but he could very easily be much higher than this if he continues to play like he just did. Josan Senon classed up to 2024 and heads to Arizona State instead of Arizona, and this summer he was absolutely lighting up the Adidas circuit and should have quite a bit of early opportunity to do the same with the Sun Devils. He's a really talented scorer first and foremost. You can immediately see his ability to get buckets, and he showed that at Formula 0 in spurts. He's a pretty good athlete, and I also like his upside defensively. I think the next step for him is just in his decision making and how viable a playmaker he can be on this level, and I just need a little bit more consistency from him on the defensive end, but he's gifted enough to be included here, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about him as a top 20 pick. Another one of the best performing freshmen was JT Toppin, and he's now transferred to Texas Tech from New Mexico. I love his defensive versatility and motor. He does a lot of the little things well, and he shot 68% at the rim and had a BPM of 8.4, but he does kind of fit into that group of tweener fours who don't shoot yet and aren't big enough to be fives. However, he did look good and looked like he was making progress in the combine process, so if he can continue to mix it up offensively and add the three ball, he'll be in a great spot when the draft rolls around. I still want to see a few more games of Michael Ruzic, but he has the type of game that is intriguing at the NBA level. He's a 6'10 big who has tremendous upside as a shooter. He can score on the interior and win with his footwork, and he can also make a play on occasion. His defense and how much 5 he can play is something to watch, but he's already got high level experience and played well in Eurocamp a few months ago, so we'll see how much he can build on from here as young as he still is. Xavier Lee is pretty easily one of the most talented and creative guards in all of college basketball, and he's primed to build on what he's shown to this point. He's got a lot in his game as a combo guard. He's shifty, he can make a play, he can get to the rim. I do want to see him continue to be more efficient as a shooter, particularly on pull-up threes, and then also settle in defensively. But even at an Ivy League school, I think he's going to be well in draft combos. I wouldn't at all be surprised if Tamin Lipsey is the runaway Big 12 Player of the Year. He's one of the most well-rounded players in college basketball, but a dog of a defender first, even at 6'1", and he's more than capable of making plays for himself and others as a driver. If his pull-up and perimeter game continue to take steps forward, I think he's a no-brainer draft pick. He had a BPM of 9.9, assist rate of 29, and a steal rate of 5. That stat profile, along with what you see him do on the court, is a winning combination even if he is undersized. And another guy out of Iowa State, Milan Momcilovic, showed a lot of promise in his freshman year. My biggest concern last year was just in where exactly he plays, as he is a bit of a tweener forward who isn't the most fleet of foot defensively right now, but his dynamic three-point shooting and a versatile scoring skill set at his size make him a really intriguing player. If you can ease some of those concerns on defense and avoid some of that late season slump we saw him have, I think he'll be a top 40 candidate and possibly one of 3 Cyclones drafted this year. Now, because it is so early in the year, we'll stop it right there and just briefly overview some of the others on the watch list, starting with some more freshmen. A lot of this is going to be dependent on early playing time, but I like a lot of what I've seen from Junie Mobley at Ohio State. Darren Harris was one of the hardest to leave off here, but I feel like he might be the odd man out in Duke's rotation. We'll see. LeBaron Philon is another one I think could pop if he can get enough minutes. There's also some intriguing wings I like in Darion Reed, Cannon Catchings, and Jackson McAndrew, and I love Derek Queen and Flory Bidunga for nearly opposite reasons, so they'll be watched closely this year too. The sophomore returners have a ton of guys whose game I like. There are just certain things that they're going to have to improve upon to pop more this year. You've got Garway Dual, who I'm still in on, and then tons of other guards here like Jackson Shellstad, Elliot Cadeau, who I think should be or could be on their way to being some of the best in college. Jaren Stevenson could be in for a breakout year, and then other bigs like Brandon Garrison, Bayan Dongo, and Zvonimir Ivisic are worth tracking here. And then to the upperclassmen, as many as there are here, there's still several not on this list just for the sake of presenting it graphically, but we could talk all day about those who are here, and the rest of the Ref Top 60 is filled with majority these names. Finally, wrapping it up with the international players, there's a lot more I need to get to with this group. Believe it or not, I too only have 24 hours in a day, but Ethan Almansa, Dame Sarr, Alex Tui, Malik Lewis, Bogolub Markovic, Andrei Yelovich, and Hansen Young are all worth discussing, among others that are on here and will be added later. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and leave a comment down below of some of your favorites in this class and maybe a guy or two you think is a sleeper right now. And again, for those of you interested, that recap on Formula Zero is up on HoopIntellect.com, so be sure to go check that out. The link is in the description. But yeah, as always, I'm Keandre, this is HoopIntellect. Until next time, I'm out.